I'd like to call the meeting to order, and welcome to November 6, 2006 Lowell Planning Board meeting. On the agenda tonight would be the minutes from previous meetings. Minutes from the October 16th meeting. James, we don't have those minutes, correct?
Correct. I have a minor backlog of minutes, unfortunately, and I'll try to get to those before our next meeting.
On my calculations, we're still looking for the 16th of October, October 2nd,
Correct.
September 21,
Correct.
September 7th,
Correct.
and August 21st.
Yes, I am. My plan is to get those completed over the next couple weeks and
Okay.
get them to you.
While we're on the topic of minutes, have any of these minutes been released to any of the public?
No.
Okay.
Nope, they have not.
Okay, the only reason why I asked that, because it came to my attention that some of them had been. And I said, to my knowledge, none of them had been. And I just wanted to ask that question to make sure, because I know it's always been the practice that we see them before everybody else has, so we can make the corrections.
Correct, yes.
I just want to set that straight, because someone told me that some of the minutes had been released from the September 21st meeting, and I said, to my knowledge, they have not been. I know that it's always been our practice that they go before the board before they release to the public, correct?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you. For
Just to clarify, Mr. Chairman, there are copies of the meetings, however, now that they're televised, they do put copies of the actual meetings
Yep,
in the
I understand
library. Maybe somebody
Okay.
took that.
No, they were saying
but
that
I
the
have
minutes were
not.
out, and I said, well, not to
No.
my knowledge. I know that it's on the TV there, and you go in the library and get a copy and everything else. I had no problem with that. I said, obviously, the minutes are something that came before us. I know how we amended it before, that Joe's mentioned that they're not verbatim, and obviously that you can get any copy you like through the library. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Moving along, we have one public hearing scheduled, which is a zoning amendment of 274, 282 Appleton Street. The Lowell Planning Board will review a proposed zoning amendment to extend the existing UMU, which is Urban Neighborhood Mixed Use Zoning District, to include the area of 274-282 Appleton Street. The area comprises of 276 Appleton Street and 282 Appleton Street, and is presently zoned DMU, which is Downtown Neighborhood Mixed Use. We hear the case for the proponent, please.
Well, Mr. Chairman, for the record, James Flood, 81 Bridge Street, Lowell, Mass. I think I had sent a letter in to you requesting that this matter be withdrawn. It was in front of the City Council last week, and they did approve that request. We tried to, the purpose of the original request was to have a drive-through for the for proposed Dunkin' Donuts, and we tried to configure the drive-through, trying to keep it on the back street, Summer Street, and it just didn't work. So that's why we requested the withdrawal. So.
Okay. I do have your letter in the packet, Mr. Flood. It's dated October 25th, 2006. Thomas Linehan, Esquire. Dear Chairman Linehan, this is a matter pending before your planning board concerning a request for rezoning. The matter is scheduled to be heard on Monday, November 6, 2006. The purpose of this letter is to request that the above referenced matter be withdrawn without prejudice. Thank you. What's the request of the board?
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we allow the applicant to withdraw without prejudice.
Motion's made. Anyone want to second the motion?
Second.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Matter is withdrawn without prejudice.
Thank you.
Moving along on the agenda, next matter, we have new business. We have a bond release, Applewood Construction Company / Hickory Hill subdivision. The board will discuss the release of the bond money being held for Appleton Construction Company / Hickory Hill subdivision. Can we get a case for the proponents, please?
Mr. Chairman, James Flood for Applewood Construction. I did speak with the engineer's office this morning, and most of the work is done. There's some minor things that still have to be done, some minor paving, and we're waiting for some updates on the as-bills from Land Tech Engineering. So I spoke to Mr. Erickson before the meeting, and I guess they emailed over that the engineering department would like you to hold $10,000 of what's left in the bond. I don't have any problem with that, but what I would ask this board, if at all possible, if your vote would provide that once this final work is complete, that upon notification from the engineering department, the remaining bonds would be released, so I don't have to appear again. If that's all right with you, and I'm sure that James can work close with the engineering department.
Anybody else want to be heard on this matter? James, I know we received the communication in tonight's packet on update that states what Mr. Flood's saying is the city engineers requesting that we hold 10,000. Have we received any other communication on this is basically what we received to date?
That is what we received today. I did speak with Joe Cady, who provided that communication, and he mentioned what Attorney Flood just mentioned, that there are some final paving details to be completed and as-built plans to be provided to the city. Once those are provided, then all the work would be complete for the subdivision. And they're requesting to hold just $10,000 of the final bonds money.
Any of the planning boards have any questions or comments or any concerns about Mr. Flood's request that if we do give the 10,000, that he doesn't have to come back, it can be released from there? Any questions or concerns from anybody? No. Joe, no? Steve?
I just had a housekeeping question.
Sure.
So, James, how much money do we have now that we're holding on this project?
I believe there's $70,000 being held now for this project. And essentially you would be releasing $60,000 and holding $10,000 in the bond for this.
And the $70,000 was held to make certain that the builder would do some of the landscaping or some of the other
Right,
work.
exactly. The engineer's office has a copy of the plans that were approved by the planning board at the time, and it also, at the time, I believe the $70,000 was put into bond a while ago, and at the time there was probably some just final paving that needed to be done, maybe some final curbing, maybe some final landscaping for sure, maybe some street trees. I don't know exactly the details for this project itself, but ultimately it was equal to roughly $70,000 worth of work. The theory behind the $10,000 right now is that that's how much the remaining work would likely cost the city. For example, I know as-built plans cost upwards of $5,000 by themselves. This final paving under city estimates maybe another $5,000, which is why they're saying $10,000 should cover it.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, under that circumstance, I would make a motion that we approve release of all but $10,000 of the money, and furthermore, I would say that, as long as the city engineer is satisfied with the remaining work, that we can go ahead and release the $10,000 without coming before the planning board.
Any other questions, Jerry? Any questions?
If I could add, Mr. Chairman, before we take a vote on that, is, matter of fact, I took a drive through this project this weekend, and this was proposed during my time as the chairman of the Pawtucket Citizens Council, and I must say the areas of concern with respect to that project appear to be all addressed from that perspective. Obviously, it's not the engineer signing off, but clearly the sidewalk extending down Mary Teresa Terrace to West Meadow Road was a concern, and that has been installed. And there's a gate at one of the cul-de-sacs to Berry Road, and that's in there. And I'm a big proponent of granite curbing, and I think that makes the subdivision look very nice, and I think it lasts as well from a maintenance standpoint from the city's perspective. So I'm actually pleased with the way that's turned out up there.
Yeah, I think they did a nice job, and they went a little above and beyond by putting in that sidewalk. Yeah, on that
And also the buffer of the grass between the curbing and the sidewalk. So it actually was very nice, very
I
nice.
think the paving that has to be done, they had to put a couple of new catch basins in, and they have to pave around it, and so it's minor work that has to be done. So that's why I asked that if, once it's done, you can release it so I don't have to come back. Like to get paid, but...
As if we won't see you again. So there's a motion on the floor. Anybody want to second the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, motion been made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Vote carries 5-0. Next matter on the agenda is the lot release of River Edge subdivision. The board will review a proposal by the applicant for the release of lots under the covenant established for the River Edge definitive subdivision. Can we hear from the proponents, please?
Yes, my name is Dennis Corners, 38 Westview Road, Lowell. I'm here tonight representing the Residents First Development Corporation. As the board knows, the Development Corporation, along with its general contractor, O'Brien Contracting, has made a significant progress within the last 7 months. We asked to be put on the agenda so that we're all on the same page relative to the lot releases. We plan to be able to pass on the first group of homes located in Zone 1 by the end of November. As the board knows, when we did the redesign of the project, we divided the work up into a number of zones, 6 zones to be exact. Each zone was designed and the work was put out so that each zone would operate independently of the other zones. That is, all the work in Zone 1, when we request the zone releases, will be 100% complete, including the utilities, the infrastructure, the drainage, and up until the final paving of the asphalt. As you know, the LTC is a nonprofit corporation. Its only income is from the sale of these homes. My goal tonight would be to get on the same page with the planning board about the procedure we should follow with the planning staff, and to minimize any security requirements that might be placed upon the Residents First Development Corporation.
Thank you. Anybody else want to be heard on this matter? No? Okay. James, anything from Planning and Development on this? I know that in our comment sheet that we have that the city engineer approves the approach, but he believes that we should have funds, correct? To stabilize the remainder of this site.
Correct.
The developer leave the project.
Correct, Mr. Chairman. From my understanding, the city engineer was hoping to get just an allocation of funds just for final landscaping or just very, very minute details when it comes down to it, but still details that can, as it's noted in the letter, stabilize the site. Essentially just finishing up the details of the phase 1 to make sure that it sort of blends in with the rest of the community and should anything happen. At the same time, I spoke with Steve Curran today about this, and his understanding was that the applicant was going to be providing that. I'm not sure if anything has been provided to him at this point. So ultimately, it would be up to the board if you feel comfortable with moving forward without the stabilization, without those funds being allocated for stabilizing the site. You can do so. Again, those funds, in theory, are for just final landscaping and just the final details that are outside of some of the primary details of a basic subdivision plan. I'm not sure if Mr. Connors can speak further on this, or if he was aware of this.
If I could address the 2 issues there's really 2 issues. It would be the remaining work in Zone 1. Okay, at the current time, there's a number of minor tasks that have to be completed in Zone 1. I would judge that I would not seek the lot releases until the work was completed. In the unlikely event that, say, we couldn't get to an item, then we would concur with the city engineer's recommendation to put aside the money to complete that work in Zone 1. Okay, that is money that we would have allocated within our budget and within our contracts anyways. Okay, I don't really see that being a problem because we're getting down to just a couple of weeks worth of work. And even then we changed tack and decided to put the final coat of asphalt on, so that didn't become an issue. To make it, when the people moved in, we didn't want to have problems with them in accessing their driveways and so forth. As far as the stabilization of the site, we had George Frakes and the city engineer out there, I think it was a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago now. The city engineer was concerned with the areas beyond Zone 1. It would be the RFDC's intent to immediately move on to Zone 2, where the infrastructure is already completed as part of this current contract, and start building the houses there. Steve's concern was whether or not down the road, if by chance the RFDC defaulted, would the current residents of either Zone 1 or Zone 2 have egress to the city regarding the construction piles or non-seated aspect of the site. Okay, I would. It is a real concern, but I would just like to bring any, like I say, because of the cash flow and the only income coming from the sale of the houses, any large security that the RTC would have to present would create a hardship to the corporation. There's no doubt. I would just like to put into the record that the part of the development plan that was passed in the legislation that allowed this development to occur requires that the Lowell Housing Authority take over the site. The land would actually revert back to their ownership, and they will be required to complete the site. My argument would be that that prevents adequate security to the city, that the site will not be left undeveloped. It's the best argument I have.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns from the planning board members? Joe, start with you.
No questions or concerns for that matter. I understand that, you know, this is being built on a relatively tight budget, and they're looking to get some of the houses sold quickly, the first 10 houses in Phase 1. I, for myself, would feel comfortable with the fact they won't be seeking the lot releases until all the work is done, number one. And number two, the development plan, as stated in your letter, it has the provisions in the event of default by the contractor, the Lowell Housing Authority will assume the site and complete the development. So we have the full faith and credit of the Housing Authority behind it as well, so I'm perfectly comfortable with it.
Thank you. Jerry, any questions or concerns?
Mr. Chairman, for disclosure purposes, I will abstaining from voting. If I may be permitted to speak, though, as you know, the local banks are providing the financing for this project, and I do serve on the credit committee, and I can attest to what Mr. Connors was saying as far as the plan that's in place, and this is being reviewed on a monthly basis. There is an engineering firm on site as well providing oversight, and we're getting monthly inspections on the work that's progressing at that site. And again, I can attest to the provisions that Mr. Connors has represented with respect to the Housing Authority.
Thank you. Steve, questions or concerns?
Sure. So I think it's a reasonable request by the city engineer, obviously, to ask for some funds to stabilize the site. That said, this is a pretty unique site, right? This is the Julian Steel site, which we've all heard about quite a bit over the past few years. So I think, given the unique situation that we're in, I think it's reasonable also to maybe take a little bit of a different tack here. And the other thing is that wasn't part of your argument, I don't think, is this is Zone 1, and there's still 3 zones to go. So if it doesn't work out this time, then, you know, there'll probably be less lenience in the zones that come after that.
I would expect you to be.
Yeah. I was up there Saturday, actually, and I think it's looking pretty good. The site looks good. The sales seem to be brisk. People were in and out, and seems to be coming along well. So I would support that sentiment.
Okay. I basically first have little concerns about whether we should put the funds up, and obviously that's the past practice of the board. We've used it since as long as I can recall. I think the situation here is a little different due to the fact that it would go back to the Lowell Housing Authority. And also, as Joe mentioned, at least none of the release of the lots would be done until all of Lot 1 would be completed. Just on a side note, I noticed that you're on the agenda tomorrow night for the City Council for an update. Could you give me an idea what that's about?
Yes.
Just so if we're going to approve something, we get a little flavor of what's going on as well?
Yeah, no, there was some minor revisions that had to be made, technical revisions to the development plan. That's the document that states the agreement between the state, the city, and the RFDC and the Housing Authority about how the site is going to be developed. Just off the top of my head, I got to refresh myself for tomorrow night, but one of the main items was the number of people that constituted a household.
Okay.
We were getting some market resistance on one of the items, so we changed that. There was a couple other minor technical details that really don't affect the development.
Okay, so that was basically what I was getting at, is how it affected the development that's going up there now, so.
No, it
Nothing.
doesn't
Okay.
affect the number of homes or
Okay.
where they're situated or the infrastructure or anything like that.
Okay, since I read it tonight's paper, I just figured I'd have to ask, and so if we lease from lots, I want to know what was going on,
It'll
any
just
change
be-
in development at all.
It'll just be another night that I won't get to supper till 7:30.
I suggest you eat before you go. Okay, thank you. Have another question from the board members? Make a motion? Anybody? What's the request of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we authorize release of the 10 lots in Zone 1 upon completion of the infrastructure work as certified by the city engineer.
Excuse me, we're going to be selling 10 homes, but we'll be seeking the release of 14 lots.
Okay, of all the lots in Zone 1?
Yes.
Okay. Authorize the release of the lots in Zone 1.
Okay. There's been a motion. Anybody want to second that motion?
Second.
Motion is made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, so the vote carries 3-0, 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Goodbye.
Next matter, we have the Pawtuckaville Neighborhood Master Plan. The board will review the Pawtuckaville Neighborhood Master Plan and adopt the plan as the official master plan documented for the Pawtuckaville neighborhood. Do we have anybody scheduled to speak on this, James, or just what we received in our packet for our own information?
No, pretty much what's in your packet. I can speak on behalf of what the process that we came through and what the plan is accomplishing. Essentially, the plan came out of the comprehensive master plan a number of years ago, about 2.5 years ago now, which called for the creation of a Pawtuckaville neighborhood master plan. At that point, a Citizens Advisory Council was created, which Jerry Fischette was a member of, to take on the task of actually creating this plan, and through the subsequent years, the product of that plan is essentially the document that's in front of you now. The document covers everything from housing to transportation to development issues to other neighborhood concerns, and just for trying to plan for the future of the neighborhood itself. Without going into too much detail, I can say that we did put a lot of hours into this, and I feel pretty comfortable that the Pawtuckaville Neighborhood Group is also in support of this, and I hope Jerry can speak on their behalf as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have about the plan itself. We will be bringing this to the council for their adoption as well, at which point I think a more formal presentation will be given in the interest of time and also in the interest of just the planning board process. I felt it was not quite as necessary to do that in front of the planning board, and I felt that if there are any questions, I can definitely answer them.
Okay. Thank you. Jerry, anything you want to say on this? I know you've been involved in it, plus you have a picture of you, you're in here on page 9. So I figured we'll start with you first. Looks like you might have put some work into this. So.
You have to be congratulated for looking at it, then. If you,
Yeah, I read it cover to cover.
As James indicated, Mr. Chairman, this has been 2.5 years in the making. And just if I could give you a brief history, as a result of the public meetings that took place for the city's master plan, when the Planning and Development came to the Pawtuckaville Citizens Council, it became very clear that because of the amount of open space that still remained in Pawtuckaville, that the greatest amount of potential development that could take place, large-scale development, would be in the Pawtuckaville area. And given the unique nature of the neighborhood that we were looking at when we tried to address it in the city's master plan, it was clear that it had to be segregated as a zone because of the unique characteristics of the traditional neighborhood around the university, what we refer to as Western Pawtuckaville, which is more of a suburban feeling, and the waterfront area, which is unique in and of itself, and the two major institutions that exist in that neighborhood, which is Lowell General Hospital and UMass Lowell. And as a result, we actually put an ad out in the newspaper looking for volunteers, people to serve on the committee, representatives from the business community, the various city boards. As a matter of fact, Councilor Broderick at the time was the representative for the planning board, and he did attend several of the meetings when we first started this project, as well as representatives from the major institutions. We have actually met faithfully at least once a month for 2.5 years. And in some instances, we actually met twice a month, and we had 3 public meetings. We actually, and I drove the bus, and we all survived. We actually took a tour of the neighborhood, and the planning department actually was able to take photographs as well in the tour, and because we were talking about sites for months and months, and it was helpful to visually get out there and see the sites. Ultimately, the goal is to guide future development and to even guide the zoning in that area. I had major discussions with Adam Backey at the time when we rezoned the city and adopted the new zoning ordinance and the map. One of the concerns we had at the time was we hadn't really completed this this portion, and therefore was it properly zoned. So the intent was to complete this document, use this as guidance for perhaps some modification of some of the zones in Pawtucketville. And out of this will hopefully come some zoning changes. One of them in the end of this document refers to a suburban waterfront district, and clearly there's a difference in philosophy with the CAC, which is the Citizens Advisory Committee, and the Planning Board. I think we agreed to somehow modify where we were, and we recognize the fact that we agree on 99% of the document, and that will be, I think that will be a zoning ordinance that will be before this board in the city council in the future. But clearly, this is we feel this is a good working document to guide the future of the neighborhood, and would ask that certainly it be supported by the planning board, and will be passed on to the city council as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have too, Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
on this.
I appreciate it, Jerry. Steve, any questions or concerns?
No concerns. I just want to compliment Jerry and the work of the Pawtucketville Group on this terrific document. It's very informative and well done. And it's, hopefully it could be a model for other neighborhood groups to follow, so that we can have this type of planning coming out of the neighborhood for places where everybody live here in Lowell. I also learned that Pawtucket means place of loud noise, which is kind of interesting originally from the Falls, but nothing in this plan will perpetuate that nickname, hopefully, in the future. James, I just had one question for you. Obviously, you've reviewed and been part of the development of this document. From a planning perspective in the city, do you think that everything in here meshes well with our plans as a city?
Yes, I do. I think the document it actually meshes well with a lot of the goals in the citywide master plan. And I think it's going to provide a very good document for the guidance and the future development of Pawtucketville itself. I know we have a new neighborhood planner who started just about a month and a half ago, who is one of the first things that she read was the Pawtucketville, after the citywide master plan, was the Pawtucketville neighborhood master plan, and she also agreed with that sentiment, and she's actually excited to take on the task of actually implementing the master plan. And I think it's something that through the process, at least for me anyway, I got I really got a true sense of what people who live in Pawtucketville feel is what they really enjoy about living in Pawtucketville and why they live in Pawtucketville. So I hope that is actually shown throughout the plan, and I think that's something that it does mesh well with the citywide goals as well. As Jerry did mention, there is, that 1% of the document that, maybe something that in philosophy the neighborhood and the DPD sort of are in somewhat of a disagreement of, but I do think it's something that we are working to come to an agreement of, and hopefully we can resolve that shortly. As he mentioned, it will likely be in front of the board over the next couple months or so, so you'll get a sense of where the differences are. However, I don't think that detracts at all from the plan itself. I think the plan itself actually highlights everything that the city and the neighborhood wants in the future development of the neighborhood itself. Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, I do have a letter here from Richard Sousa from the Pawtucketville CC Citizens Council, and it just notes, at a meeting on Sunday, October 23rd of the Pawtucketville Citizens Council Executive Board, a vote was taken to support the Pawtucketville Neighborhood Master Plan. However, the PCC recognizes the difference of opinion between DPD and CAC expressed in the document on page 34 of the draft, and agrees that the Citizens Advisory Council, or Committee, that the PCC and the CAC should be involved in any discussions about density and height requirements in the suburban water view zone. Basically, what I'm reading of this is that they're alluding to that one section of the document that it's noted in the plan that there is a conflict of opinion between the Division of Planning and Development and the Citizens Advisory Council, Committee, however, it's something that we've all agreed that we just need to work on in the future, and whatever proposal goes forward, we either need to be on the same page or we need to agree to disagree and take it from that step forward. So,
Thank you, James. I just have a couple of comments, but before I address those, I missed, anybody here in the audience want to speak in regards to this? If someone does, if you'd like to step up, I should have done that first, I apologize. I know it's not a public hearing, but obviously if someone's here and they want to be heard, I'd be more than happy to listen to them.
My name is Mark Oman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, in the Highlands section of the city. I've read the Pawtucket Master Plan, and it is an excellent plan. And I think that this is a step forward in conjunction with the some of the other master plans that we've had in the city, the downtown master plan, certainly all part of the Lowell master plan, comprehensive master plan. And I'd like to see something like this also happen in the Highlands, and also the Centerville. And I know that the MIT group is the ones that did actually the master plan proposed for Centerville. And I'd like to see that come also eventually with some recommendations from the planning office, and see the planning board take a look at them. Because I think that not only the residential areas of all these neighborhoods, but the business districts, the business parts of the neighborhoods, whether in Pawtucket, like Mammoth Road and Pawtucket Boulevard and University Ave, in Centerville, the same thing. In the Highlands, we have a lot of business neighborhoods, Couple Square, out of Middlesex Street, Chelmsford Street. Those should all be part of a master plans that are active, and really with the zoning changes that have been made in the city, and once they're finalized, the other parts of it are finalized, and hopefully by the middle of next year, that we have documents that really will take a look at the future of the next 25 years of the city, as the Acre master plan is doing, in the JAM plan, the Flowering City, which just had a conference last Saturday. So I think those are all parts of the vision. Once they're all completed, Lowell's going to be, a model for the entire world, not just Massachusetts, New England, and the nation, but the entire world. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else like to address the Pawtucket Neighborhood Master Plan? Hearing none, okay. Getting back to, I just had a couple of comments. I do agree with, I'd say 99% of everything that's in here. I know some of the goals will be a little easier to ascertain than others. I think some of the difficult ones would be easing the traffic, like over the Rourke Bridge. I mean, I know the temporary Rourke Bridge, I should say. I know you've talked about that and how you're going to do that, and obviously that's going to be difficult to do, but obviously anything that would help that for people getting over that bridge and all the other bridges getting to Pawtucketville is difficult, and I know it comes to a lot of funding when you come to dealing with bridges and what has to be there. The question I do have, though, is we have to, you said we vote to approve this. If there's something in here that we don't like, could we edit that?
At this point, I believe it's the document as a whole.
There's three parts in here that I disagree with, and all three of them talk about in-law apartments. We had 2 public hearings on in-law apartments. We had 2 subcommittee meetings with the city council on in-law apartments, and we as a planning board voted unanimous not to be in favor of in-law apartments. So I think if we spoke in favor of against the in-law apartments, and then to accept it less than a month later as a neighborhood master plan, it's not consistent with our past vote. Those do show up in the document on page 32, page 33, and page 37. They all talk about the in-law apartments. That's the only problem I have with the plan. So my question was, if we could delete those, I'm in favor of the plan. If we cannot delete them, then I'm not in favor of the plan.
Mr. Chairman, could I,
Sure.
could I just address that
Sure.
a bit? Because, matter of fact, we were a little displeased with how that in-law ordinance had come before this board and the city council, and it being implied that it was a result of this document. I think what came out of the discussions at the Citizens Advisory Committee meetings, and I think it spells it out a little bit better on page 33 at the very top, is currently, as we speak, in-law apartments can be built. It is happening as we speak. We identified some in the neighborhoods. They're able to go in, by right, obtain a permit, and build it. We have absolutely no controls other than as long as it complies with what is currently on the books, which does not really, it allows you to do it, but it doesn't give you any control, per se, relative to specifically an in-law apartment. So what we were looking for is, and I think, if I may, Mr. Chairman, that action step, the city will work to regulate the development and use of in-law apartments, limiting such units for use as non-rental units to direct family members, and ensuring that the construction of these units is consistent with the spirit of the city's single-family zoning districts. Additionally, DPD will work to clarify the existing set of regulations governing the construction of these units and develop regulations limiting the size of in-law apartment units as they relate to the primary dwelling structure that's located on the lot. We had some examples of some in the neighborhood with the 3-stall garages and the 2-stall garages and the units. I mean, that's being constructed as we speak right now. And it really, in some of the traditional post-World War II neighborhoods, with the floor area ratio of 0.5, going from a cape, or a matter of fact, I think this particular one I'm thinking of was a split, and a relatively small split. They basically doubled the house with the in-law apartment. And what's happening is, I mean, I'm aware of some in my own neighborhood that people just started renting them out, and it really is nothing clear to regulate it. So we really were looking for something more restrictive than what came before this board, and what happened is it went completely in the other direction, in my opinion, and I think in a lot of people's opinion as well. So that was the intent of this language, Mr. Chairman. Clearly, matter of fact, if you know, any expertise you could bring to this, and if you feel that the wording falls short, but that is the spirit of why that is in here.
Yeah, and I understand that this was a work in progress. This was going on for 2.5 years. The concerns were, and I even know that you were at the meetings, you spoke here, you spoke at the subcommittee for city council, and I think when it first came out, there was one flavor that if we could regulate it, it'd be okay, and then the more we read the ordinance, the more disagreement people were. The more we said, the main thing that jumped out in my mind was the unenforceability of it. And I think, you know, that was one of your concerns too. I think you mentioned that. So I just said, I went through everything, and the only thing that jumped out with me was like the in-law apartments. I know obviously it's not edged in stone here, but I mean, I think if we could either read it literally that way, or maybe I'm looking at it too strict, and if we look at it that develop and implement an ordinance, so therefore we'd have to make an ordinance for that where we don't have it now. And if we look at it that way, then it could be acceptable, saying that we haven't passed an ordinance, and if the ordinance is right, then obviously we'd do that ordinance. James, do you hear what I'm saying on that, or am I being too broad on that? I mean, on page 37, in the summary here, it says, develop and implement an in-law apartment ordinance, where we haven't done the ordinance yet, and I know when it came back, I think the council's last remark was to send it back to fine-tune it. So basically, we haven't accepted one yet. So here would just be maybe to look at one that would be acceptable in the neighborhoods. That would be more appropriate to say, didn't Jerry?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
I mean, I was just trying to think of where we spent a lot of time on this most recently, and then to see it here, that was the only thing that really jumped out. I read the whole thing. All the other stuff I thought was great. I like the history behind it. Some of the stuff you know, some of the stuff I think you know, then you forget, and then you remember it again as you read it, and then either that or you've never seen it before, or you have seen it, you still don't remember it before. And the pictures were very helpful in breaking up the, and I think it was very helpful talking about how everybody complies with the use of the land with the two major things, with the university and the hospital, which is pretty tough to do in a neighborhood. It really is, makes it really unique. So, anybody have any questions as a result of what I said?
Just a couple of comments, if I could,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman. I certainly look at this document as a framework for work that the city will be looking at, and certainly as a planning board we'll be looking at in the future, and using this as sort of a guideline and a blueprint. I think it's an excellent document in that regard, and certainly I wish to also congratulate Jerry and everybody that worked on this. It's not easy to get a group this large to have a consensus, I think, on anything. But in terms of specifically the in-law apartments, we had that big debate. I think the consensus was we didn't care for the ordinance the way it came before us, and it got shot down. But I see at some point in the future having a comprehensive discussion concerning in-law apartments. They certainly need to be reviewed. They certainly need to be regulated. some careful thought has to go into whatever ordinance we're going to be able to come up with. So I think that this, it mentions in-law apartments, but I think it also mentions we have to work to come up with appropriate guidelines and regulations for them. So I think as far as that's concerned, I'm comfortable with it. I would mention in terms of this document, I did have an opportunity to review sort of an advanced copy, and I had also the opportunity to borrow some of the information for some work I'm doing relating to a couple of local churches. So at least some of your document has made it to the Vatican, I can tell you that much. So I do appreciate all the work that went into it, and I'd be in favor of recommending approval.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could, I don't know if the Pope needs an in-law apartment or not, but if he does, he's got the wording.
Not yet.
We can
So-
probably find one for Tucker, right, Jerry? It'd be no problem.
So when I read this document, I was thinking of it in the spirit of, it's a neighborhood group coming to us, giving us their ideas and their suggestions. I was thinking of it as more of a recommendation to the city's master plan, nothing binding. I wasn't thinking that our vote tonight would be, we accept everything in this document verbatim. It's, we accept this as a recommendation from the Pawtuckaville Neighborhood Group, understanding that, not everything in here, we don't have the power to implement everything that's suggested in here this evening, but we accept it as a recommendation from the group, and, we will, allow our planning department to consider it as items that will go into the master plan. I wasn't thinking that we'd be accepting it as a, rock solid.
Yeah, to expand on that, I know, like, for example, the master plan for the whole city, we've had projects that's come before us in the past that didn't exactly agree with the master plan, and the board has voted for it. Perfect example would be out by Cross Point behind there, when Jarvis wanted to build across the street and put in where the extra cars is, but past the rotary. They wanted a high-rise in that neighborhood for the master plan, and because they have the dealership now they want to put over there the cars and want to put the service and all that in there. And the consensus of the board was, well, the master plan was to put in high-rise and everything else, but it was vacant land, somebody wanted to make use of it, we thought it would be a good use of it, we had a willing developer, willing to act on it, we didn't think it would negate the neighborhood to that effect, because the car dealership was right across the street, and even though the master plan was not in favor of that, because they wanted the high-rise, because that's where the towers and everything else was, it was the ultimate wisdom of the board that we strayed a little bit from the master plan and allowed that because of the fact it made use of the land that was beneficial to all. So I do agree also that it is a guide, but I do miss by mentioning it, but also now, by saying that, I agree that we can fine-tune the ordinance as the in-law apartments. So, thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, anybody want to make a motion? Jerry?
Yeah.
With a little hard work, I think you should, I want to put the heat on you, but I think if you did all this,
I certainly, I'd like to make a motion that we accept this document as the Pawtuckaville Master Plan, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
motion made in second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes, the vote carries 4-0. Next matter on the agenda is the approval of the planning board schedule for 2007. Anybody have any questions on that? Basically how we meet the first and third Monday of the month, and then if we fall into any holidays, then we usually go to that following Thursday, because that's the only time the room is available. Before, when we used to be over in the Arthur Hammer room, we did that Tuesday, but since we're in here with the viewing capacity, now we have to go to Thursday because other people are using the room, so that's, and the only other thing is if things come along and we know ahead of time, sometimes we have changed the meeting if necessary, if something comes up. So do you have any questions with the schedule?
Mr. Chairman, I know that for a fact that there's a meeting here in January 18th that I won't be able to make. I won't be able to make a meeting any time that week.
Okay,
I'll be
no
away,
problem.
But, I don't think it's worth trying to, change the schedule to work around my schedule, especially since I know that I can't make it any time that week, so.
That's fine. I mean, we anticipate, people being here when they can't, we totally understand, things do happen. The only time we basically had changes when we know something was way in advance, when we only had a 4-member board, then if we knew that one member would be missing, then we'd try to change the date, so if we had, for the public's concern, they came forward, everybody wouldn't come out, and then if they had a special permit, needed 4 votes, we only had 3 people sitting here, we didn't feel that was appropriate. So during the 6 months that the board was shorthanded, we communicated very well, and we just said if someone cannot make a meeting for any reason, I know I had that problem on one date, and we suggested to board members and we changed it, and it worked out well. So we always keep that in the back of our mind if we have to for some particular reason. But basically, we go by the schedule, but it's not etched in stone. If something comes up and we have to change it, we can always, only thing we have to do is do it far enough in advance. So when we have the submittals for the next month thing, and this one I knew like 3 months in advance, so I brought it before the board members, and we just changed it to the following week, and it wasn't a big matter that way. Everything was advertised properly and was done effectively, so. Any other questions? Make motion to approve the agenda for schedule for 2007.
So moved?
Section, moved in second. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Votes 4-0 in favor. Okay, we have update and administrator clarification. Site plan 200 foot of John Street, the boot mill, boot cart mills number 2. The board will discuss the clarification regarding the total number of units approved by the board for this project. This project was reviewed and approved by the board in March of 2004. James, anything you want to give us an update on this?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, thanks. Essentially, it was brought to our attention that by Mr. Barry, who's in the audience tonight, that this project was approved. The final decision letter for this project, it came in front of the board back in March of 2004 for site plan approval. It also required a zoning board of appeals special permit for use. But the final approval for the site plan approval portion of this project was for 106 units. Upon further inspection, we looked at the actual application for this site, and we noticed it's included in your submittal. We noticed that it appears that there was just a clerical addition error. For example, on the second page of the application, it mentions under brief summary of proposed work, it mentions to construct in phases 106 adaptive reuse residential condominium units in existing mill structures, 66 units on floors 1 through 4, and 44 units on floors 5 through 8. 66 and 44 equals 110. When we reviewed the plans that were actually submitted, that also showed 110 units. And when we also reviewed for example, the parking requirements, when they had to fulfill their parking requirement, they were fulfilling it for the 110 units. So it appears to have been just a typo or a clerical error. At some point along the stage, the 110 became 106 by accident, and it's before the board tonight just to clarify that mistake if the board so chooses. To also note, we also reviewed, I don't have a copy for you tonight, but we did look at the Zoning Board of Appeals approval for this site, and their approval actually authorized more than 110 units. And in order to get that approval, they did also have to provide parking for that number of units. I believe it was it was upwards of 120 to 140. I don't remember the exact number that the Zoning Board of Appeals approved for this project, but I just want to make that known that it is approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals for more than 110 units. So if the Planning Board so chooses, they can, I think 110 units would, it's up to the board to basically clarify that administrative.
Thank you, James. Is anybody here in the audience want to speak on this? Yes, sir. If you could come up to the podium just so we could hear you, please.
My name is Edward Barry. I am a partner in the Boot Cotton Mills Development Corp. And we are under construction for supposedly 110 units. And as James was saying, it came down as 106, but if you added the numbers up, it's 110. The building permit is for 110, and we would appreciate it if the board would take this under consideration and comply with the 110 units that we have from the other agencies.
The only question I had earlier, I was going to ask, but since you're here, I'll ask you, was James says you have enough parking for the 110. That was the only concern when I read,
Yes.
when I read the request.
Yes, we have
Because
enough.
I went down there, I was there yesterday, and I went around, and I noticed they were out there spray painting, doing some work on it, and I noticed plenty of parking down there, but I didn't know where it was all designed for who and what. Because it's a
Yeah.
pretty big-sized project.
Yeah, we have
The whole
a,
complex, I should say.
we have a parking lease at the John Street Garage
Oh,
with the
well.
city, and it covers the 110 units.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience want to speak on this matter? Hearing none. Any of the board members? Steve, anything you want to say? No? I know This was back in '04, so I don't think you guys remember that. Do you have any questions? No? Joe, any questions, concern? I know you may remember it.
I do remember it, but it happens I wasn't at that particular meeting according to the minutes, but...
Yeah, that's right, now that you mention it,
so
yeah. So
in
I guess
any
it was
event,
only me here, yeah.
You know, I'm sure if I was there, I would have picked up on it right away.
That's probably why we had the oversight.
You're right. It appears like a fairly straightforward clerical error. It is noted in a couple of occasions, 66 units on floors 1 through 4, 44 units floors 5 and 6. Just, as I said, straightforward clerical error. I'd certainly be in favor of modifying that plan to reflect the actual number of 110 units. And I'll make that as a motion.
Okay. Motion's made. Anybody want to second it? Second by Mr. Generman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Vote carries 4-0 in favor. Thank you, sir. We have an update, administrative adjustment, site plan 724 Chelmsford Street. The board will review with adjustments to the final site plan of 724 Chelmsford Street. The project was approved by the board in September 2005. Do we have anybody here in the audience want to speak on that, please? Yes, if you could come up to the microphone, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, gentlemen. My name is Dimitri Mattheos, and we own the property at 724 Chelmsford Street, which is under the Avia development. I had a meeting today with some members of the board, Mr. Erickson and Mr. Proakis, and we went over the project. And what we are looking, we need some administrative adjustment for the betterment of the project. So Mr. Jim has all the details about the changes that we made. It's very minor things that we've done to better the project. If any one of you who has seen this building will probably feel proud of what took place in this area. A year ago, we came here in front of you and we asked to get the green light to put something in this area, which is the entrance into the city from the two major highways. And I promise you that I will have a very nice building put up there. And this is where we're at now. But we're ready to occupy and we don't have the occupancy permit. So unless we get the people in there, it's useless. So it's up to you to make the decision to get this thing going. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
My son.
You want to speak, sir? Anything you want to tell us? No? Okay. Are you in favor, I take it? You're in favor? The family pressure. Yeah, I've been up there. I know you're coming along pretty well up there. Everything's looking pretty good, huh?
Beautiful.
So basically, you're just waiting. So what we have here in front of us that was given to us tonight is the proposed edits to the site plan. So this be,
Minor adjustments that were made.
Okay.
We were blessed to have one of the best contractors of the city in a timely manner and a beautiful work that he had done.
If I may comment briefly, Mr. Chairman, just about what is before you. You have a copy of the plan that was originally submitted to the board. Since that time, the board has approved one minor landscaping change to the plan.
that'd be called,
A number of months ago. And when we met Mr. Proakis, Diane Trad, and myself. We met Mr. Mateos out on site this morning to go through the points of just some of the other changes that were to the plan. And essentially, from our understanding, is the building department, the city's building department, is waiting for a final set of plans prior to occupancy permits. The applicant's engineer is trying to ensure that all of his plans show the final approved conditions of the planning board. And what is before you is a bulleted list of everything that has changed from the original submitted plans to what is on the ground today, or what will be on the ground once this is complete. And it covers everything from very minor things to the addition of just bollards around the property that Mr. Mateos added to the plans, more to protect his house. And upon inspection, when we were there today, they just were very minor additions to the parking area. And then other changes, including some of the landscaping changes. We had, as I mentioned, Diane Trad, our landscape designer, was out there today, and as opposed to what is, she recommended some changes to what is on the final set of plans that was approved by the board, in an effort to beautify the site in a different manner. And once you see it on the ground, obviously it's hard to determine when you're looking at a plan what the final landscaping plan will look like. So when we had Diane out there, she gave a set of recommendations of what she would like to see there. And if the board is comfortable, I'd like to just have the board bless these changes and basically this bulleted list of things that have been changed, things that have been added to the plans, and things that are still to be complete. For example, there's a couple stop signs that Mr. Mateos has agreed to put at the edge of his property just for traffic's sake. Final handicap parking signs that are actually, I believe, are required by the ADA, and he'll just install those as required. Fencing around the dumpster that Mr. Mateos just hasn't had time to complete. Very minor things when it comes down to it. If the board has any questions about what's on this list, I'd be happy to answer them, but that's in a gist what we're trying to provide to the board tonight.
Thank you, James. Any question on the board members? Joe, you have any questions?
Just one question. I mean, these have been reviewed by the city engineer and by sign people, et cetera, and they seem to all be okay. But I'm just curious about the reason that the retaining wall at the rear of the project is going to be changed from a landscape block wall to poured concrete. Was that for an engineering reason or aesthetic?
This was the back side of the property, not the front. And that was for a betterment of the property. You know, if the plow hits this dry wall once, it's gone. This one is a permanent wall, it's there.
Yeah.
So I consulted with the city engineer and I brought the plans and he says, I want you to do it that way, Steve Karen. And we followed up his recommendation and we did it. It's nothing different than just for the betterment of the project.
A little more solid wall.
Solid, definitely.
That's right. Okay, thank you. I have no other questions.
Jerry, any questions, concerns? No? Steve?
This is Stairway Plaza,
Yeah.
the site of the famous Stairway to Nowhere.
That's right.
What happened to the stairway? Is it still around?
Well, there is a good answer to that. I made a promise at the planning board that I would keep the name, and I kept it. Stairway Plaza. This is a legend who lived there for 75 years, I believe. And since I've been there for 35, I figure, you know, it's worth giving the name.
Yeah, I remember when you came in for the public hearing, he mentioned that. You know,
Yeah.
whoever said, where's this site? Stairs to nowhere. And everybody, oh, I know where you mean now.
sure.
I mean, nice. We all talked about how long they were there and who could date back to when something else was there, but then we had to stop, think it back. But I know one talk was you were going to donate them somewhere or do something with the stairs themselves. I remember you were thinking about doing. I don't know what you'd actually do with them, but.
I was thinking to put those stairs somewhere in the building, and as the people were working around, they picking them up from one place. One day it dropped and it broke in half.
Yeah, you end up moving them so many times, yeah, just easy to move
But
them
we
once.
put the sign on,
Yep.
the picture.
Right.
We try to make it so nice that it looks and enhances the area.
I think these seem like appropriate recommendations, and I would move that we approve them.
Thank you. There's a motion made. Anyone want to second the motion?
Second the motion, Mr.
Motion is
Chairman.
made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes, and motion carries 4-0 for your administrative adjustment. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully you'll be open up soon, huh?
I hope if I get all of this.
I mean, it looks like a lot on the
bureaucracy
list, but I mean, so far where you've come from doesn't seem like there's a real lot that really has to be done, but it's more. I mean, you look at it, you think there's a lot, but I imagine you could probably do it in a short period of time. A lot of it can be done in the
Already,
same.
all of the items that are in this paper are already taken care of today.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You can start checking them off, like the signs and stuff. It's not difficult work.
The signs is just-
painting a handicap spot.
They're
I mean,
made.
Yeah, I mean, that can be
We'll
done.
have them by the end of the week.
Yeah. Well, good luck with your project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Good luck with it.
Good luck.
Are we getting anything out of this? I've got to bring it to my...
You need a copy of it?
Moving along on the agenda, we have other business. We have notices from abutting towns. These are just activities going on in the other surrounding cities and towns. Any of the board members have any questions about notices from other towns?
I have none.
I have none.
I'd make a motion to place on file.
Okay. Motion placed on file, the notices from abutting towns.
Second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Vote carries 4-0.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
James, we just voted to approve the notices from abutting towns to place on file. Moving along, general correspondences. Anybody have any general correspondences? Any updates from any planning board members in the packet? Or anything they want us to be concerned of? The only one adjustment I have is, I know that on the next meeting, November 20th, we're going to have Middlesex Street back in here. I know the two new planning board members were not here for the prior public hearings. We had the one public hearing that was continued, then we finished it, then it came back for a repetitive petition. James, you think that the minutes could, if they were approved by then, you could give them a copy so they bring up the date of what's been going on the Middlesex Street site, that 1881?
Certainly, I will, Mr. Chairman, I'll do my best to get all those minutes into the next packet, and
I think it'll just benefit the new members of what's been going on,
that they're
because
as accurate as
they've been
possible.
before us 3 times now, and I think it's, to have the new members right up to speed. I know some of those meetings, Jerry might have been here or whatever, so he might have a flavor from, I don't know how much Steve knows about what's going on in that, but if that information's available. I know, like we said, the June and July we had, I think it was just a repetitive one coming back.
Correct. The
The June
original
one, we continued to July, we voted it in July, then they brought it back, I think early October, which we allowed them to come back, and so they're coming in for another public hearing. That was just a repetitive one.
Correct.
So those two I know have been completed, because I made reference to them at the last time we were here.
Correct,
Okay.
yes. And this is just for the special permit for the...
Right, yeah, so just so if you could have that, so the new board members would have some background on the
Correct.
site, that's the only thing I'd request,
Uh,
as
just-
general correspondence to them, okay?
Correct. Just to note, Mr. Chairman, as you mentioned earlier, those will just be copies of the minutes that won't
Right.
technically be on file yet until the board approves them at the next
Right.
meeting. But I will try to make sure that they're as accurate as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that way it just gives them an understanding of the issues that have been presented and what we've been considered so far to date, so I think it just gives them a little extra idea what what's been done at the other hearings, even though it's a new hearing, but I think it gives them a little background. Just, I mean, if they've been approved that night, they will be publicly acceptable to everybody. If not, at least the board members can look at them. So I appreciate that, thank you. Moving along, the next matters we have is the zoning board legal notices. I believe we have 4 this evening. These are for the notices that come before us for recommendation to the City Zoning Board of Appeals, which will be held on November 13th, 2006 at 6:30 in the City Council chambers. The first one is Vasios Panagiotopoulos, a special permit and variance at 124 Stephen Street. This is a traditional single-family petition for a special permit to expand a non-conforming 5-family to a 6-family dwelling in a TSF, which is traditional single-family zone, direct with the variance for insufficient usable open space, land area per dwelling, landscaping, parking, open space, and screening setback requirements. So he has a non-conforming 5-family that he wants to convert into a 6-family with insufficient open space, land dwelling, landscape parking, open space, and screening setbacks. This matters, if you're familiar with it, you go all the way down to Stevens and right across the street, as you can tell by the little site here, it's directly across from Nicolette Street, behind the temple there. It's basically a pretty good-sized unit with yellow siding on it. And like I said, there's 5 units now, and they want to make it 6.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
make a comment?
sure.
So I drove by this apartment on Saturday, and, you know, my feeling is that, you know, I don't know how they got 5 units in there, to be honest with you. It's a, you know, the houses around it are all single families or maybe 2 families, that sort of thing. It's very tight. The side yards are very tight. They looked at the parking map, and they want to try to get 12, you know, parking spaces in the back there. You know, I think it's pretty tight for 12 parking spaces. I had a hard time turning around in the parking lot on my own. So, you know, I really don't think it's appropriate to try and expand this to a 6-family. I did notice that there were already 6 mailboxes there, so I'm curious as to why that is the case. But, you know, it would be my recommendation that we recommend that the Zoning Board of Appeals deny this application. I'll make that in the form of a motion.
There's been a motion on the floor. Anybody want to second that motion or discussion?
I'll second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. The vote is 4-0 to deny this matter. The next matter is the estate of Irene Poirier, which is 27 St. Paul Street, which is a suburban single-family, to divide an existing lot and vary the total square footage requirement for the second lot. So basically what they have is 2 lots, one lot which is the house is on, the second lot is where a garage is placed, and they want to make that lot where the garage is into a undersized single-family lot. It needs 10,000 square feet, and I think they have 8,000 plus, I think it is. What's it, 836 or something? Let me take a look at it.
Mr. Chairman, before we begin to deliberate for recommendations, I'm going to recuse myself from this matter because I'm familiar with the applicant.
Okay. Yeah, so if you look at it, basically, as indicated there, this is a 10,000 square foot zone. So it is one continuous lot now where the home is. It's a greenhouse up there. It's, like you say, and you look over, there's a garage. And where the garage is, it's encroached by a chain link fence and a lot of overgrown trees in that area. So they want to create an undersized lot, create a separate lot by deeding off and making lot 2, which would be 8,675 square feet. So they wouldn't have the 10,000 that's required in this SSF lot, where they need 10,000 and they'd only have, they'd have the 10,000, 12 feet in S1, but they'd have a smaller lot, which would be the 8,675 in lot number 2. Also, when they have the minimum front yard, I noticed they say in lot 1 it has the 25 feet existing, in lot 2 it has NA. I don't understand why they don't have a minimum front lot if they're gonna put in. I know it's not existing now because it's a garage, but they'd have to put something if they're gonna do it, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, one of the, and I've seen this before, and if I can express what my concern is, and then expand on that a little bit, but I've always had some difficulty with a petitioner creating their own hardship and then requesting a variance. And in essence, by subdividing this and being allowed to subdivide it, the petitioner is allowed to create a hardship and then seek relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals in order to have that be a usable lot. Now, I looked at the application, I was a little confused. I don't know if this site was, prior to the rezoning, was in the old S2, which was 7,000 square feet. It implies in the application that, you know, and the requirements changed while deceased was ill and was unable to protect prior zoning. So, obviously there would be some consideration there if in fact this had been an S2 zone and which would have allowed them to have a lot that was 7,000 square feet. And with the zoning change, obviously, that, and if it was designated by the character of the neighborhood, and I know the planning department was very diligent in going and identifying the existing character of the neighborhood. And another issue relative to even the master plan and open space is, and we've talked about this at great length, is open space isn't just parkland and passive recreation, but the actual yards of our neighbors. And these homes that have larger lots that by zoning requirements cannot be subdivided to meet the requirements are what give the neighborhoods their feel. Having said that, again, I've seen this in the past, where a petitioner creates their own hardship and seeks a variance, and in all due respect, I think many times it's older established people in neighborhoods, abutters are willing to accommodate, but in the end, it does change the neighborhood, and ultimately, I've seen it time and time again where the petitioner then leaves, and that's what we're left with. But I do have some difficulty with this particular proposal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Steve, any questions or concerns?
Sure, I just, just kind of this on its surface, we're the planning board. We don't have the benefit of the public hearing. There's probably a lot more information that will be brought up at the Zoning Board of Appeals. But it seems to me, as the planning board, we should be taking a kind of a higher level view of things, and hopefully the Zoning Board will take our recommendation, bringing that into mind. And given that, I don't see where it makes a lot of sense for us to, we've got this zoning map, we've got this zoning area where 10,000 square feet is the minimum lot size. In the absence of a really strong argument, I don't see where it's appropriate for us to be saying, yeah, it's okay, 8,000 is enough, we were just kidding. So, maybe at the Zoning Board of Appeals there'll be a wonderful argument put forth, and the neighbors will all come forth and say wonderful things, I don't know. But, from a planning perspective, I would say that, we probably shouldn't make it our practice to be approving or recommending approval of undersized lots in areas where we've already got a policy.
I agree. I was up there yesterday looking at the site, and it's a nice neighborhood. It's a beautiful neighborhood, really. Everybody up there maintains their property excellently. I'm looking at it, and the other thing I really don't like is the layout of the lot. It's not nice, square, neat. It's kind of, we talked about trying to stick different lots in to get the square footage where this goes in, and if you pull into the driveway like I did yesterday, then it stops, and then you can see where the driveway stops, the garage is to the right, but once that stops by the house, then that whole lot that lot line takes a hard left almost on that angle. It's going to be appearing like it's almost the property of lot one. And so when you get neighbors when you have, nice straight clear lines make it a lot easier for neighbors. I mean, if you want to build a fence, or you have people that aren't compatible as others, it's nice to have easy bounds when you're a neighbor. I agree when you have a 10,000 square foot lot that we should come as close as possible to getting a 10,000 square foot lot. I think that's what people buy a house in certain zoning areas in the city. They look for certain things that they want. I mean, people want a 10,000, they will go looking up that area to get a 10,000 square foot house because they want to make sure they have their property around them, they'll pay their price, and they'll get what they're asking for. And to keep reducing it, I know other matters have come before us where people have had 9,600. And this board has requested no, because it was a nice lot in a different neighborhood in the city, but we said basically, you should try to stick, as both of you have mentioned, within the criteria that request that to meet the required lot frontage. And, I mean, the total lot area. So I'm in opposition to this as well. So I think it should be 10,000 square feet, and I think the way they're cutting up the lot, it's tight squeeze in there. And I agree with both of your comments. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion. I know Joe's abstaining.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend the denial of the proposal.
Motion's made.
Second.
And second by Mr. Gentleman. Chair votes yes, so the vote carries 3 and 1 abstention and 1 absent. Okay. Moving along, the next one we have is for GB Homes LLC. This is on 85 Fort Hill Ave. Traditional 2-family. Petition to allow driveways of insufficient width as access to parking area. You look at the plan, I believe on his right side, his driveway going in is, I believe, 9.7 feet, and I believe coming out is the same. I was up there today, and The foundation's there, all the exterior is built, just not the final coat on it. But so basically it's, I think what they're doing is they'll be going in on the right side and coming out the left side, because that's where the arrows look. Because obviously there's no way you can get 2 cars to go both ways on either one of these entrance or exits. So what I appears to do is, I think it was, well, the note at the bottom of the plan says, proposed 4-family building replaced for a destroyed structure with existing non-conforming status. Front yard setbacks in line with the abutting dwellings. So I'm not, was there I think there might have been a fire on this, James? Is that what it was?
Correct, yeah, I can provide some background, Mr. Chairman. Essentially, what happened is there was a fire on this property that burnt down the existing 4-unit house. Under our zoning and under state law, I believe, you're allowed to rebuild after a fire or after demolition on that same footprint, essentially the same house that you had prior to, and you have grandfathering rights to create that same use. So that's why they were allowed to rebuild a 4-family in a TTF district. It was somewhat under the recommendation of the planning department for them to provide more parking if they could in the back portion of the lot. As you see from the plans, one of the only ways they can do that and provide enough space for traffic flow is to go in on one side of the house and come out on the other, thereby maximizing their space for parking for the 4 units and taking some of that parking also off of the street. I believe the original house that was on there prior to it being burnt down provided very limited parking, if any. So they're actually trying to provide more parking than they are required to do, because in theory they are allowed to rebuild as it was prior to the fire. That's just a brief history of the background of this project, just for your information. I can answer any questions that you may have as well.
I just had, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, please, Joe.
This is being rebuilt on the existing foundation?
Not necessarily the existing physical foundation, but they have rights to rebuild on the original footprint.
Okay.
They probably, if there's fire damage to the existing foundation, they have rights to tear that out and rebuild a new foundation.
Right. I'm just wondering if, this is the pre-existing footprint, if they built it there. I mean, I think it obviously would have been better to shift it one way or the other, to have a wider drive lane and maybe just have one driveway to come in and out.
Right.
I mean, that being said, they're obviously rebuilding what was there on that footprint and that size. If you were building it from scratch, it's not what you'd want optimally, but where they are providing for parking off the street and behind the building, I mean, they're the ones that need to deal with getting in and out of the driveway, so.
Yeah, like I say, the foundation's there, and it's all framed, so if they don't get approval, I guess they're gonna start trimming. I don't know. When I went up and looked at it today, I'm like, wow, it's already up, so I mean.
I can clarify that briefly. The requirements are that you have to build on the pre-existing footprint. So if they were to shift it one way or the other, that would require a level of approval that they probably didn't want to go through.
And that goes back to one of those natural disasters, not if you tear it down on your own and then.
Exactly. This was a fire
Right, that's
that
like I said,
happened.
that's why I mentioned the fire,
If it was exactly.
So I mean, and also I looked at that.
Of course, there are situations. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to cut you off.
No problem.
As you mentioned, Mr. Claremont, of course, there are situations whereby it'd be great if they could adjust it. Unfortunately, the law doesn't let them to. So we're sort of working within the parameters of the law here as well. So.
Yeah. I mean, they could have moved for a different approval process to shift it a bit if they wanted to, but, I mean, it's already done, number one. Number two, allowing the driveways, in my opinion, is going to make it better than it is right now. It'll get the parking off the street. So I would be in favor of recommending approval on that.
I know in the front of the house here, it looks like they have all this lawn area, 5,000 square feet. Basically, it's really not that wide open, because what they don't show in here is the area that comes out, which is like before the stairs are. There's stairs going up, then there's a wide area that goes back like a platform area, so, and it says it's 12 feet back. Once you put the stairs and everything else, you're only talking from the street, it's, my estimation today was a total of 6 feet at best, so it's really, when I first looked at it, I said, wow, they have all that space in the front, and then you're up there, I know they're not counting the area that the stairs lead out to, as well as the stairs coming down, and that was, because they have 2 doors in the front. I didn't go around the back because it was under construction, it was narrow, all the dirt was dug up, so I just stayed out front. Any questions for Jerry or
Mr. Chairman,
Steve?
I had a question, James. What is the legal requirement for width of the driveway, do you know?
Let me get that for you. This is a traditional two-family district,
It's,
serving it's traditional two-family district.
yeah,
and,
TTF, yeah.
Different districts require different widths depending on the usage of the site and that sort of thing. In the TTF district, I believe it's 8 feet width, but let me check on that real quick. Yes, it's an 8 feet width as long as it's providing access to basically a residential project.
So this is 9.7 feet, right?
Correct. I believe the part of the variance, though, is, let me check the plan real quick. I believe the variance is partially due to the location of the driveway in relation to the lot line. Technically, our zoning requires that a driveway or a paved area is 3 feet off of the lot line. The plans here show that the pavement is right on the lot line, and I believe that's what the variance is for.
Okay.
Just for
All
clarification.
right, so it's basically you're looking at a 1.5 feet or so that they would have been off if they left 3 feet on the side.
Exactly. If they left 3 feet, they would be at 7.5,
Right,
maybe
right.
6.5, depending on the side it is. And I believe they wanted at least the 10-foot or as close to the 10-foot as they could, which is the variance that they're getting is, I believe, for the setback requirement.
Right. So, I mean, it's obviously not optimal, but it sounds like they're replacing what was there exactly, and they're actually providing more parking than was there before, correct?
Correct, yes.
So I would, support the sentiment to approve this.
Motion made. You want to second that motion?
I'll second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Recommendation approved 4-0 in favor. The last matter for the zoning board of appeals is Oscar Di Stefano, 169 Merrimack Street, special permit and variance for downtown mixed use. Special permit to allow residential and commercial use in the artist overlay district with variance to allow off-site parking on the area. This basically is the, if you go down there, right between, on Merrimack Street, right past the spa and right before the Wells Imperium, there's a little building there with a door, and if you go up, there's office buildings, the law offices up top, directly across from the Shawmut Bank, directly across from Palmer Street. Because I walked down there yesterday and said, where is it? And my first question was parking. I do notice that they have a letter in here. They have obtained parking at the Leo Roy parking facility on Market Street. So they'd go right down Palmer Street and go and park over there. So basically, it's to put residents in the building above, as I refer to it, the old Wood Abbott.
And James, maybe I could ask you, and correct me if I'm wrong, what they're looking to do is to get the special permit for the residential use under the artist overlay, because it's in the artist overlay district, they're getting a special permit for the use and a variance because they don't have parking, they end up with the parking in the garage.
Correct. The special permit is under the artist overlay district section of our bylaw, of our zoning ordinance. It requires a zoning board of appeals special permit for that type of use. And the off-street parking, they're required to have, I believe, under that district, 2 parking spaces per unit, and it looks like they're leasing those in the Market Street garage. So okay. So they're leasing that in the Market Street garage. So yes, you're correct.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, can we make no recommendation
Yeah,
to the zoning board?
we have. Sometimes we've done it, Steve, if we've had the plan that we get, we look at it and we said, we don't know what they're doing. It's like insufficient. Sometimes if we feel we need more information on it, we're not comfortable either way, we've made that motion in the past, yes.
Right, because, you know, I'm hesitant to make a variance to the artist overlay district, but this petition may be, you know, may be satisfactory, but, you know, in the absence of someone to tell us exactly what's going on here, I mean, my feeling would be, on this case, you know, we kind of just leave it to the zoning board to decide if the information is sufficient. But I'm open to suggestions from other board members.
I think the variance is specifically related just to the parking issue. The fact that they want to put the use in this building, the residential use, is the special permit process through the Board of Appeals. I think the variance portion relates only to the fact they can't provide parking, so they put it in the garage. And will they give them a variance to accept that as the parking for this unit?
And then they would need a special permit following that for?
They need the special permit to build the apartment in the artist overlay district in any event.
Right, so, and they haven't got that yet?
No, they're going for both.
I may try
They're
to,
both Board of Appeal issues.
if I may, Mr. Chairman, I may try to clarify, correct, Mr. Claremont is correct. Essentially, the artist overlay district is it's a district, it's an overlay district over primarily the downtown mixed-use district, which allows an applicant to go forward with a multifamily project, in theory, artist live workspace, through a special permit process in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The condition or the requirement under the artist overlay district is that all other parking requirements are met within the city. And I believe in this case, they are providing their parking in the Market Street garage. The variance in this case, however, is, to be honest with you, confusing to me. I believe we do have allowances in our zoning that allows you to provide off-street parking within 1,500 feet if you're located within the downtown mixed-use district, where this project is located. I'm curious to see, it has to be within 1,500 feet, however, so I'm wondering if the Market Street garage is just outside of that threshold, which is why they're getting the variance from our parking requirement. It may be at 1,600 feet from the front door of this project, which would be justification for a variance from the parking requirements. With that said, however, they are still providing the legal required amount of parking spaces, and they are allowed to go forward with the special permit under the Artist Overlay District. I hope that clarifies somewhat what is happening here. At least I tried, if it didn't.
Uncertain why they need the variance, because the ordinance provides when they're reusing the building,
Exactly.
it's appropriate to put it in the garage.
Exactly. In the downtown mixed-use district, we didn't want, or the city felt that as long as there was a city-owned garage that you had designated spaces in, you could fulfill your parking requirement by using that if it's within 1,500 feet of your property. In this case, I'm not sure how far away this project is from the Market Street garage. It may be just outside of that 1,500-foot area, in which case the variance would be required. However, they still are providing their required number of parking spaces, it appears, in that Market Street garage. So it's really a variance from the distance. With that in mind, downtown mixed-use district is a very walkable district, and it's designed for that walkability, and it is designed for people who want to live in that type of setting, in an urban setting whereby they may need to walk 5 minutes to get their car. It's not right outside the front door. That's why it's downtown mixed use and not suburban single family, for example. So is it outside of, I guess my main question is, or my main point there is that it's sort of characteristic of the downtown mixed use district to allow such off-street parking in a publicly owned facility.
Is it clarifying things or making it more clear?
I don't know, I think I'm a little more confused. No, I understand what you're saying, but basically what you're saying is you're speculating on why they would need the variance.
Exactly. I'm a little unsure as to why this is, and maybe that's to your point, maybe there's not enough information here.
So that's kind of my point. I think my recommendation would be, or my suggestion would be, that we make no recommendation to the zoning board on this and just let them figure it out. It doesn't seem like a huge issue anyway, but you know, in the absence of a lot of information, I would be more comfortable making no recommendation.
Jerry, any questions, concerns?
I just, Mr. Chairman, would it be appropriate for us to just recommend that on these applications that it would more clearly state what the the variances that they're seeking. I mean, I understand the zoning board of appeals will have the benefit of the public hearing, but just for future reference, from a more administrative
Yeah.
standpoint,
I hear you on that, and the only question I have is, since it's the zoning board of appeals agenda, not ours, I don't know.
yeah, well, exactly,
So,
right.
you know, how they want to rule on it, you know, we, obviously, sometimes people do come here and speak in favor of us, and that's fine to it. Sometimes we don't have the information, and it's tough because you vote on something not knowing all of the issues. Well, that's why, I've always been a strong believer with the public hearings, let everybody speak
Right.
and find out what's going on. And the more they tell you, the more you know, and you are more informed to make a decision. Sometimes it makes a decision harder, but at least everything's aired out, and at least you know all the issues, which that benefit, I think, benefits us immensely when people do come in and give us the perspective of the project. My issue on this is, it's downtown, they're gonna be parking in the garage, it's above by law office. I don't see a concern about it. I've known we've allowed it in the past. I think it's putting people into downtown. They're parking in the garage, it's raising revenue. Obviously, they're gonna spend money downtown. I don't know, it's not like we have a long list of people trying to get into these areas that they are now. Hopefully, I know when it goes before the Board of Appeals, they're gonna ask the same questions we did, if not more, and they'll have to sell their case to them. So basically, trying to put another people in the living area in downtown and put more cars in the garage, I don't have an issue with it, so I'd be in favor of it, and I'll make a motion that we approve it.
Yeah, and then if, just for comment, to Steve's point, I think in the past, we often have looked at an application and determined that there's not enough information to go forward, or perhaps no plot plan was provided, and we can't make heads or tails off the bare bones of the application, and we would in fact take no action, make no recommendation. In this case, in my opinion, we're not certain exactly why they need the variance, but we know what they're going to do with the variance. They're going to have the artist live space here, and they're going to park in the Market Street garage. That's the gist of it. So I'd be comfortable with that aspect of it, and I would second the chairman's motion to recommend approval.
So the motion on the floor is a second, all in favor?
On the motion, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to belabor this.
Okay, no
but
problem.
it seemed like the permit was actually for more than just the parking, right? They're also asking for a permit to allow residential and commercial use in the artist overlay district.
Right.
So they're not just asking for a variance on the parking restriction. They're actually asking for a
To
special
live in that
permit
area, right.
to locate there.
Yep.
So, that said, I'll follow along with your recommendation, but it just seemed like there was more than just the parking that was met.
Oh, it definitely is. The special permit that they're seeking is to put the residential use in that pre-existing building. That's under the artist overlay district.
So what are you-
Whenever you're gonna put any live space in those buildings, they need to get the special permit, so that's
Okay,
the
so it's
second
not
phase.
really any variance from what the intention of the artist overlay district.
No, it's to
just
comply with
the
the
process
ordinance.
that you
Exactly.
follow.
So anybody who wants to move in there needs a special permit to get in there to begin with.
Okay.
And then they need the variance for the parking.
Fair
So
enough.
basically, it's a twofold. So it's basically, they want the special permit, whether we think people should live there, have the agreement to live there. And some of the ones who do live there, are musicians and stuff of that nature. In this case, it doesn't mention that they are. I'm sure if they were, they would have put it in the application. So this might be people just want to live downtown. So, but that is a special permit, that anybody to live in that artist district is the special permit process.
I see.
And anybody for the parking is indicated in the variance. And the first thing I did look, my concern was, where are you gonna park down there? I mean, some people like walking to the garage, I guess it has its benefits. You don't have to shovel, if the front, you take it off, clean your car off in the winter, but it's pretty tough coming back from the grocery market, I guess, if you have some bundles, how many trips you make, I don't know. Maybe you just take them one at a time. or-
So we need to get Trader Joe's down.
Yeah, we need something downtown where people can go make, walking distance, something like that, But a lot of these people, I think, they're not big families, or the individual people who are gonna shop lightly, I think. But so it has some pros and cons, but I look at it as positive. People want to live down there and work down there. I think it's gonna generate business for downtown, and I think that's one of the things we're desperately in need of. And like I say, puts money in the parking garage, utilizes a lot of things. And when I looked at the site yesterday, the only thing I saw upstairs was law offices. So I'm like, we got some law offices up there, some people living up there. I don't think it's really detrimental to the neighborhood. I didn't, you know, on the first, like I said, the spa's there, the Wells and Pyramids there. Over to the right, you have the bookstore. Down a little further, you have La Beniche, and then up there, it's just all the brick buildings and a couple of law offices listed up there. And it's just a one single door entrance. If you walk by it quickly, you barely even saw it. I mean, I had to stop and get out and walk around before I could find it. I mean, but it's right across from the Sovereign Bank there. So, I mean, looks like it's high up, and they have a little plan of where the layout's gonna be in the back. So it's right in the corner there, you know, by Kirk Street, so.
And then, Mr. Chairman, if I may, as I understand the overlay districts, and the advantage of having overlay districts is it allows you to use that particular area for a slightly different use without changing the zoning and expedite the process.
Right, that's why it's required by the special permit instead of the zoning change, correct.
Exactly,
Right.
yep.
So it gives you a special permit, so it's put in there, the special permit flexibility, and therefore it requires a stricter criteria before the zoning board of appeals for the special permit instead of just a regular variance. So they have a harder time passing the special permit than the variance. Because then you gotta look at the special permit, the character of the neighbor, and all those other, that criteria of list in the special permit procedure. Okay, thank you. So I think that completes our recommendations for the zoning board of appeals matters.
Can we
Yep.
finish our vote on?
Yeah, I believe, a motion was made and seconded, and I believe all in favor, aye, yeah.
All right.
Aye.
Right, and I think that completes our agenda tonight. Any of the members have any other?
One comment, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering if, James, you could provide us with minutes from the zoning board of appeals meetings in our packets when we get them, so we can see, you know, if they follow our recommendations or not.
Yeah.
Curious to find out how things turn out.
I can definitely, I'll say to the board that I can definitely get what I can get. I can't guarantee that they're going to be minutes. I can't guarantee that they're going to be the meeting afterwards, but I'll put a word into the ZBA administrator, and I'll see what I can get for each meeting. If anything, I can hopefully at least get a vote of each of the new public hearings that you, for example, tonight, provide your recommendation on.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Therefore, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.